All right, all right. Welcome back. Welcome back to another episode of the Masterful Conversations podcast, where we learn about leadership from the men and women who have served in leadership roles in a regular lodge or chapter of Free Accepted Masons or Order Eastern Star. I am Brother Matthew Wagstaff, proud past master of Eureka Lodge number 36 out of Rochester, New York. We're currently serving as my worshipful master is Brother Jermaine Myers, and I'm with.
I am Brother Mark Alexander, proud past master of Sons of Kings Lodge number 123 out of Brooklyn, New York, where Brother Kevin Parker currently serves in the Oriental Chair.
We both hail from the most worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge of the state of New York. We're currently serving as our Grand Master is most worshipful Darren M. Morton. So we have another special episode. We've invited another sister on the show to hear about leadership from the other side, So we appreciate having our guests today. But before we get into introductions for our sister here, we have a couple announcements we want to make, and then we'll jump into the disclaimer. So, Mark, you want to start?
First and foremost, I'm definitely want to somebody like 4 hours from now, it'll be my wife's birthday. She'll be the age she will be. Me and her, she a month older than me. Well, I'll announce it because we 50 years old. She'll be 50 and I'll be 50.
Put it all out there, Mark.
Put it
Just
all
put
out
it
there,
out.
out there. Exactly. It's a proud big moment that everybody. She like she's 30, so it's all good. Nobody believes it. So congratulations. I mean, happy birthday to you, baby, early, and we be celebrating all tomorrow. Also, I just want to give a big shout out to brother Byron Ruck, who just received his past thrice illustrious degree. He's the first thrice illustrious master from my lodge. So continue to do that big work and good work out there, Ruck. Appreciate you.
Absolutely. So, congratulations, happy birthday, all the blessings for sure. Um, Also want to put a announcement out there that we're on I want to say episode 47 or 46 of the show. Almost to
Something like that.
50.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of gems that we have received from our guests on the show, and so we're gonna start doing summaries of some of the lessons that were shared during each episode, and we'll make those available. So if you're interested in receiving summaries, we'll put a couple out there, probably in New York or brothers who are close or from other jurisdictions, but we'll probably start in New York. We'll hand out a couple of them. But if you're interested, if you're listening right now, interested in the summary from some of the episodes, put your email in the chat if you're listening on YouTube, or send us an email to masterfulconversations@gmail.com. I believe that's the email.
Yep,
So again,
that's
we're
it.
going to do some short summaries, probably be like a page, 2 pages at the most, with some of the key points that came out of the presentations or the show episodes. I think we're going to start with most worshipful past Grandmaster Prescott. Yeah, he was the most
Yeah.
viewed, so we'll start with him because he had the
Mm.
highest views, and then we'll go from there. But if you're interested, let us know either in the chat with your email or send us an email. There's nothing esoteric in it, so don't worry about it. We'll send it to anybody that wants to learn about leadership.
Exactly.
So email us at Masterful Conversations Podcast at Gmail. Masterful Conversations, excuse me.
Conversations.
Masterful Conversations at gmail.com. And otherwise, continue to like episodes, subscribe to the channel, do all the YouTube things that you need to do so that you can stay in touch and in tune with what we got going on here at the podcast. We appreciate the love. It's been fantastic. So,
Definitely do.
anything else before we jump?
Let me do the disclaimer. Um, if the views and opinions of this show are our own, do not hold the views and opinions of our prospective lodge or chapter or grand lodge or grand chapter. Um, the show is intended for informational and educational purposes only. If you have any particular questions, please consult the proper office in your prospective jurisdiction.
Absolutely important. This is not representing Grand Lodge or Grand Chapter for this one. So,
Mhm.
we're gonna have a good conversation. So, I have the privilege of introducing someone I've known for a very, 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 very long time. Was it kindergarten? So,
What?
Kindergarten,
in
yep.
a
What?
very long time.
Nice.
Sister Alexis Onyszkiewicz, who is a past matron of Ionic chapter number 77, Order Eastern Stars, Prince Hall, affiliated out of New York. Sister Onyszkiewicz holds many titles, so I'll just run through a couple of them. But she has held many leadership titles in the craft. She's a past illustrious commandress of Hadjai Court. Hadjai Court, number 62, out of the Oasis of Buffalo, Desert of New York. She is a past loyal lady ruler of Bison Assembly, number 48 of the Order of the Golden Circle. She's also served as a past Grand Trustee of Eureka Grand Chapter, Order Eastern Star, Prince Hall, affiliated out of New York. And so she has other titles, other things that she is
You
responsible
ain't
for.
mentioned the past matron.
I did. I said she's a
Mm,
past matron of Ionic chapter number
Okay,
77.
I,
She
I think
served
you.
from the
Dang
years of 2014 and 2015.
There you go. All right.
it.
Yes, she served for 2 years in the
The infamous
2014 and
2015
2015.
class.
Yes, we are.
The
And what was that?
infamous 2015 class. They
Uh-oh,
always
uh-oh,
brag that they're the best, but it's all good.
uh-oh.
Yes, we
Keep
do.
it.
All right.
There's a
Well,
lot of them. They do their
we
thing.
gonna
They do their thing. I
we
can't.
gonna learn something. We gonna learn something today. So, with that, welcome to the Masterful Conversations podcast. Sister Onyszkiewicz.
Thank you guys so much for the invitation. It's wonderful that you guys are branching out, and I love this, and I love some of the conversations that you guys have been having, and it's always interesting to see other people's perspective on leadership. So thank you very much for the invitation.
Our pleasure. Definitely happy to have you here. So with that being said, um, let's hear about your journey. So if you can just start us off with when you became an Eastern Star, what was that year? Do you know if you remember who was the worthy matron, worthy patron at that time when you came into the craft? And then we'll jump into like your elevation through the chairs and ultimately to the east.
So you're gonna laugh when I tell you, I came into Ionic chapter in 2006. The worthy matron was Patricia Austin, and the worthy patron was Gaston Custer. Um,
Mm. Junior?
yep, Junior. He was the worthy patron, and Marcianne Mason Gaynor was the grand worthy matron, and David Minor were the grand worthy patron. Um, I came in May 24th, and from December of 2006 to December of 2024, I've always sat on an elected station in my chapter. I went from a star point right to the associate conductor station. I really had no idea that I was on this journey to be worthy matron. It was my godmother, and at the time she was the conductress, Celeste Davis. They were like, "Come on, let's go. We're doing this. We're doing this," and it kind of just became a natural flow. And then I think I kind of figured it out when I became conductress that, oh, I guess I'm gonna be worthy matron at some point, because it was never about being worthy matron. It was about doing what I needed to do for my chapter. Um, so as far as my ascension in the chapter, it wasn't, we one of the things that I pride myself on is being from a chapter that we've been very helpful to each other. Um, and we've kind of got our own rhythm and flow, and we've learned to lean on each other's strengths and kind of carry each other through, our weaknesses. There are some things that I'm just not really good at. So I would call Rhonda, who was always she follows me in all the other houses, and I would call Celeste, and we worked as a team. Um, and that's one of the things that I always try to stress to people. Leadership is not an I sport; it's a team sport. Um, and people think that leadership is because you're the head. You can be the worthy matron, the worshipful master, and have the title and not be leading anybody. One of my biggest things is leadership is when people willingly want to follow you, not because they have to, but because they want to. I learned a lesson. My aunt was worthy matron in another chapter, and one of the sisters, I'll never forget, she asked her to do something, and she said, "I don't have to do that." And then my aunt turned around and said, "You're right, you don't." And so, like, that was something that we always laugh about it, but it was very impressionable to me because people don't have to do what you ask them to do.
Mm-hmm.
They just have to pay their dues and maybe or maybe not show up. Your goal is to want them to get to show up and to be active in that participation. So that's one of the things that I tried to hone in, was trying to get people to want to follow me, to want to be a part of the chapter. And I think I did it pretty good. I had a good 2 years. Um, I always joke, I always say I would never go back as worthy matron, and that still remains true. But an amazing 2 years as worthy matron. I did what I set out to do. And I'm one of those people where things are only for a season. When you start sitting someplace too long, you're no longer effective. Um, So that was also something I learned, that in this organization, sometimes we have to learn when our expiration date is. Um, And we're getting there, but not quite yet. So that was something that I absolutely learned, being worthy matron. And I also learned patience, because Lord knows I'm not a patient person. But I had to learn that when you're dealing with, and I used to say when you're dealing with women, but that's not the case. When you're dealing with people, you have to learn that not everybody is where you are. And to be a successful leader, and I think one of the things made me more successful my second year was that I learned to meet people where they are, not expect them to be where I am. And if I needed them to get where I was, I had to learn that I had to help them along. So that doesn't mean standing at the head of the room telling people what you have to do and what you need to do. It's let's do this together. So that was pretty much, and then I was the baby of the group. So I just got dragged around by all the old women and told what to do. But I now, as one of those old past matrons, I truly
Listen,
appreciate
we
it.
the same age. You ain't old. Stop
Let
it.
me tell you, but you know what's funny? We are the same age, but now I look at it. You didn't serve too far behind me in the East, but I now laugh because, like, me and my sister sit there and laugh. We like, oh, we them old past matures they used to talk about, aren't they? Because
Yeah.
we are now the old people.
Mm,
There's a generational
Old
gap, and
platonically,
it's
yeah.
like,
it's a whole
right,
decade since you've been out the
right.
seat. That's a long
It's a whole
time.
decade. And then when you sit down and you look back, I spent my entire adult life in this organization.
Hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
spent, next year will be 20 years. Like Matt
Hmm.
said, and you came in before I did. So, we've spent our entire adult life in this, around this. So it's definitely shaped, for me, who I am as a person. But I appreciate the time I got to spend with those old crotchety, past matrons, because now I understand them a whole lot better. I definitely understand them a whole lot
Mm-hmm.
better. Um, and then two, I also got to gain a lot of their knowledge and the historical perspective um, on why we do things. So I think as we tend to get younger in age, and even like you said, Masonic age wise, we lose some of the tradition and the culture. And we do have to understand that some of that tradition and some of that culture no longer serves us. But we also need to understand why it was done that way. Because I'll never forget, I was at I believe it was Prince Hall Day service, and I used to wear my hair really short, and I had a bang. And God rest her soul, Sister Ireland from Paramount, she tried to take my kidney out with a marshal's baton. And I had to like catch myself because I'm like, why is this old lady, trying to
Banging.
knock me out? And then she pulled me into the bathroom and she said, take that bang and move it. And,
Hmm.
and I'm like, okay, like calm down. But after service, She sat down and told me why we don't do that, you know? And so those were the women that I got to be exposed to. And I am forever grateful for that. And then two, a lot of the people that mentored me are no longer here. So it's, I take it as my personal job to carry on and teach what they taught me because I feel like this organization was that much better because they were here. And you don't often get people that stand out. Everybody has their mentors, and everybody's is going to be different for different reasons. But for me, those are people that stood out, whether you were in the first district, the second district, the third district, they stood out across the state because of who they were. So I'm thankful for that. I am.
Mhm.
And
Ask you a quick question as far as
yes.
with the marshal that almost took you out. Now, I know, it was a good lesson to come back and think about it, but you think the approach was could have been a little bit different, reflecting back on it?
I'm on the fence about that
Mm-hmm.
because I feel like I'm one of those people that things have to apply in this organization like they apply in the real world.
Mm-hmm.
People in the real world are not always nice to you. Now, do I think that we should approach some things more gently? Absolutely. But I also realize that the three of us are from a generation that's not as sensitive
Oh, yeah, yeah.
as the newer generation. So I
Mm-hmm.
didn't really I was kind of like, why is this old lady poking me? But I didn't take offense to it. And then
Mm-hmm.
two, it was her approach after.
Yeah.
She
Mm-hmm.
did come to me afterwards and she
Yeah.
said, and she told me, she said, and I
Mm-hmm.
can say it now that she's passed on, but she
Mm-hmm.
said, and baby, don't you come back here and tell nobody I was nice to you, okay? Because that's just the type of person she was. So,
She probably did that with
um,
everybody. That's why.
she did. And come to find out, we're telling stories. We're
Uh,
telling stories years later, and they're like, oh, she did that to everybody. She did the same thing to me.
so we might as well get
So
the name. I don't think, did you say the name?
her name was Betty Ireland.
Okay, great, great.
Um, she had a lot of sons. I think it's what, three of them. It was Frank. It's three Ireland brothers in
Yeah.
Paramount, and
Mm-hmm.
she was not a past matron, but
Mm-hmm.
she was a dedicated marshal. Um, but she was one of those people. And guess what? Every time I see somebody, I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, you need to move that. Like,
Yeah.
let's, I don't take the kidney out with a marshal baton, but it's
Okay.
something I always remember. And it's
Yeah,
something that
definitely.
I pass on
Mhm.
So those are just like some of the little things that we did.
Gotcha.
Just on a similar note, Bobby Littlejohn would do something like that. When you enter a room and you're going around like shaking hands, he'll just smack your hand down. Like, what are you doing? Go
Yep.
sit down. So after the meeting.
Listen, I
Can't,
remember him
can't even
very
greet a brother
well.
around here.
You wait till after the meeting, disrupted the meeting. But that's something that always stuck with
But
me.
he was, you know what? He was one of those people. I remember when I came. Well, no, actually, I was already in the Sirens, and
Mm,
we had an occasional.
mm,
And everybody's talking, and he's like, just sit down so we can do the degree. But afterwards, he was one
mm,
of the nicest people, and he would tell you all these stories. And
mm,
those are the people that you wanted to be around because you got that type of information from
Mhm.
them.
mm, mm,
So let's just jump into a little bit more detail around your leadership. And when you are, let's say, associate matron, 'cause
Hmm.
that's the first step before becoming worthy matron, right?
Yes.
Again, disclaimer: I'm not an Easter Star, so. But when you were associate matron, do you remember what you were thinking about in preparation for your next step as worthy matron, and kind of how do you prepare yourself for that? And who was your worthy patron when you became worthy matron?
When I became worthy matron, my worthy patron was Howard Davidson, and he was absolutely the yin to my yang because
mm,
I'm very and he's very calm and relaxed and laid back. And
Mm,
every once in a while, he was one of those patrons. He never scolded me, but every once in a while he kicked me and be like, calm down. Like, I'm like, okay. Um, I'm not gonna lie. When I was associate matron, I served as associate matron for 3 years. Mm, Me and my worthy matron got along, and I can say this now because she's one of my best friends. She was Celeste Davis. we fought the whole third year. So I used to do stuff just to get on their nerves. I didn't care. Um, but in that time, and it was nothing against her or anybody else. You're always supposed to look at the leadership ahead of you and see what is it that what your chapter is looking for. Was there,
Mhm.
because not everybody can do everything perfect. Um, so a lot of things that I looked at was, okay, we've got this down to a science. What is it that we can do better? What is it that we need to improve upon? So communication was a thing, but we were also in that age where things were starting to change. People were starting to use email more. Um, all the 7 district WhatsApp groups in our chapter, I started all of those because that was the new form of a communication. That was everybody's phone is in their hand. So how can you get this information to them just that much quicker? And I'm gonna be honest with you, I tell people all the time, don't waste a stamp on me. Unless I'm expecting something, please don't waste a stamp on me because
Hey,
I
hey, hey,
guarantee
hey.
you, I listen, I
I'm,
understand,
I'm messing with you.
but
Go ahead.
but I'm the type of person. I moved 8 months ago and still forgot to forward my email, or
Yeah,
forward my
yeah.
mail. My mail is
Mhm,
piling up at my mother's house, and I'm never gonna look at it.
mhm,
If it doesn't come to me in email, or you don't tell me
mhm,
that you're sending me something, I'm not that type of person. So it was, how do we connect it with our older members who still want that piece of paper? And so that's when we started the electronic communication. We were actually one of the first chapters to do electronic payment because that was something that I learned. And Celeste is she's the type of person that you want to be the chair of your fundraiser. Like, I was very smart about that. If you want to raise some funds, you're going to go to Celeste. But one of the things that we also learned was people don't carry cash. This is the generation where we stop carrying cash. We stop
mhm,
doing stuff like that. So how is it that we can use some of these things that are out here? So we were one of the first chapters. We had Square Payment.
mhm,
Um, so it was about learning to evolve and trying to figure out where those gaps are. And as is something I have conversations with all the time, is in this organization, you have generational gaps. They used to be a lot larger, but now they're much smaller. Because think about it, you have people that came in the last 5 or 6 years and they're already worthy matron or worship master. I
mhm,
sat on that line for 10 years before I became
mhm,
worthy matron. So the gap of time into the East or time into roles of leadership, because just because going into the East does not always mean leadership, those gaps are getting much smaller. So it's trying to figure out how to be most effective with those people and trying to teach them some of the nuances of this organization. Because, like I tell people, number one, this organization is not for everyone. Um, and that's okay. We're not supposed to be for everyone. And also, two, you have to learn how to pivot and adjust with the people that are around you. Because could I be worthy major now? Probably not.
mhm,
And that's just the honest to God thing because I know my limitations.
Mhm.
So it's about how do I support, how am I a support to my worthy matron? Um, One of the things I always tell people when you're preparing for a station like the East, be a planner. You cannot wing it. I've seen people try to wing it and it doesn't turn out in the best way. So even if you can only do things 3 months at a time, do that. But part of being a leader is having a strong team. And I think that's sometimes where we lose a lot of people because I can do it by myself. Oh, I'll take care of it. And because when you do that, you leave people on the outside. So they don't feel like they're a part of, so they don't want to do.
mhm,
Um, and sometimes, like I said, like one of the things that I've learned, again, being worthy matron in 2014 and now advising my worthy matron, people are very different. You know, a chapter that was full of women affiliated to Ionic. Right now, we have a lot of women that have come in from the Grandmaster's Edict.
Mm.
So their understanding of the organization is much different than what my membership was. So again, it's about understanding your membership and including them.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't include them, you don't have anybody to follow you. You can't lead
Mm-hmm.
somebody if you don't have anybody to follow you.
That's a
Mhm.
fact. How many
Mhm.
sisters do you remember roughly, like approximately, were in Ionic back in 2014, roughly?
So in 2014, when I became worthy matron, we were at like 45, and then I initiated 14.
Okay, that's brothers and
Um,
sisters, or just or sisters?
I don't think I initiated any brothers.
Okay, so about 60 roughly.
Yeah, about 60.
Okay, that's a good size. That's a decent size. And you mentioned
How many,
earlier that
just real quick, how many people coming out? Around 15?
So when I was worthy matron, one of the things I was very proud of is I averaged between 15 to 18 people at my meetings.
Yeah.
And we pretty much stayed between 14 and 18 all the way up into
Okay,
the
cool.
pandemic is,
mm,
I think it affected everybody in that
Hmm.
way.
Yeah, definitely. The
you
time to find out, that's just the average. It seemed like between 15 and 30, no matter
mm,
how big a loss, loss chapter, that's how
Hmm.
many people's coming out, 15 to 30.
Yep.
I don't think I've sat in a lodge like a lodge meeting, not like a special occasion, but I don't think I've sat
Hmm.
in a lodge meeting that had 30 people in it since I've been a
Hmm.
Mason,
Okay.
outside of like a
Oh.
special meeting or a raising or something like that.
Mm.
So I will say this. um, When, again, when I was coming up the line, things were a lot different. We visited other chapters. So there was nothing for there to be 30 to 40 people in a room because the other chapters went to each other's chapters, not to be no, just to help.
Yeah. Hmm.
So that would like now it's you can really see what chapters and lodges, and I'm assuming it's pretty much the same thing, but you guys tend to visit a little bit more.
Yeah.
You can see what's going on in the chapters because usually it's just the members now.
Hmm.
Visitation used to be a very big thing. When my aunt was district deputy grand matron, she always took an entourage with her.
Who's your aunt?
You
Who's your
know,
aunt?
she's past matron Belinda Grant of Naomi chapter. When she was district deputy grand matron, and even when past matron Mildred Shepherd was district deputy grand matron, we always went with her. See what it was about. And we wanted to know what the grand matron had to say before we got to our meeting because our meeting was at the end of the month. Um, so that I think is a lot different too because that's also how you learned. And
Definitely.
one of the things I always tell people when I became district deputy grand matron, there was no class on how to be a district deputy grand matron. There was no handbook, but I
Hmm.
knew I could be a good deputy because I saw other good deputies. And I
Hmm.
was around those people and I traveled with those people and went to different meetings to see what it was that I was supposed to do. So I think that was very much a benefit,
Mhm.
of having that type of community
Yeah.
when we did stuff like that.
The before we get into the other question, you mentioned earlier that you had a more successful, I think was the word, second year than the first year. Can you share maybe one thing that you did differently that second year that somebody listening right now may take as some insight?
So
I know you
one of
said you
the
met them where
things
they are, where they were, and those sort of things too, but
So that was a big thing. That was a personal thing. That was to me that's self-awareness. Like I had to learn that I can't expect people to be up on 10 with me and they're only at a 2 because again, people have lives outside of this. Um but one of the things is my first year, I think I stressed myself out by taking everybody's problems. So
Mm.
I was the sounding board for everybody, called everybody, and then by year 2 I was like I can't do this. And I realized that it was a lot because not only were, and Matt can kind of tell you this, the culture of the seventh was much different, right? Like we knew that there was going to be days when we had 4 or 5 events in a day, and you just, put your good shoes on and went to all
Mm-hmm.
4 or 5 of those events. Because we felt a sense of obligation. And then
Mm-hmm.
again, I use the word community. Of course, people have their disagreements. You always have people that don't, but we always still felt the need to support one another. But what I started was, basically, I took everybody's name, put their name in a bag, and you were responsible for that person for the year. So basically, it was the buddy system. It was, you are supposed to call and check on this person at least 3 times a year. You are supposed to send this person an anniversary card, a birthday card. If something goes wrong, I should know about it because you're responsible to talk to this person.
Now, you
It
delegated that to your officers or just regular members?
No, the whole chapter.
Oh,
Everybody
every
got their
chapter got
name,
something? Dope.
and you picked your
Okay.
name out.
Oh, that's dope.
And if it was two
I
people
like
that
that.
really didn't come out,
Mm-hmm.
put their names back in. And actually, it's ironic because one of the people, they're best friends now. Like, they're absolutely inseparable. Um and I
That's a
think that
unique
was
thing. I never heard of that before. That's very
because
dope. I
it
like that.
so it was one of those things where when you got done calling and checking on everybody, you get tired,
Mm,
because people are relieved to have somebody to hear you, but then you're like, oh, that was a lot. But I still got 5 more people to call today. Um, and then too, like, I knew we had a sister, Mary McGee. She did not come out. I had never seen this woman before in my life. But I could tell you her life story because I made it a
mm,
point to
mhm,
call her, because and she told me the same story every single time. But it was for her, it was comforting to know that people were still thinking about her.
mhm,
Um, and she was my Sunday call every 3 months. She would tell me, and her husband was a very active past master, and so his health
okay.
wouldn't allow him anymore. But I think that took some of it off of me. And then two, when I talk about community, when we talk about those 2015 masters and matrons,
Mhm. Yeah.
um,
Mm,
we leaned on each other a lot.
mhm.
Because when you are in that East, you are there by yourself. The only friend you got is your constitution and your ritual. There's no such thing as a friend. Um, so the the matrons and masters of 2015, we could vent with each other. And it was good for us because everybody was experiencing some version of the same thing.
Mm,
And that was our community. And we still have a chat group.
mhm.
We still talk. Every event we're at, we gotta take a
Still take that picture.
2015
Hey.
picture. We gotta take
Mhm.
that picture.
Yeah.
We're
I
still
love it.
doing that.
Mhm.
Um, so that was, and then two, I kind of got used to it. That second year it's like a pair of sneakers. You wear it that first couple of days and you're like, oh, these aren't the best. But by 2015, I was ready to go. And then two, not that I've ever been scared, but I was much more comfortable telling people and correcting people. We had a situation. A past matron came to me and she said, "Now, worthy matron, it is 4:30 and this room is not set up." And I went up and I sat in the east and I put my stuff down and I said, "You know what? You know what, past matron, it's not." I said, "Because the people that are supposed to set up the room have gotten so used to me doing it, they didn't do their jobs. So I guess we gonna start chapter meeting late today because I'm not doing it. So when they get here, they can set it up or you can do it for them." And after that, they was right where they were supposed to be at 4:15. So we could start on time at 5 o'clock. you know.
Mhm.
So I got a little bit more comfortable because as a leader, you have to learn how to deal with conflict. And I think a lot of people are in leadership, whether it be in this organization or anything else, are not comfortable handling conflict. And because they're not comfortable with handling it, they handle it inappropriately. And things that should not be nuclear bombs turn into nuclear bombs. And then that leaves a bad taste in everybody's mouth. So that was part of it. Definitely, I was just more comfortable. I was absolutely more comfortable.
But your conflict piece, it made me think that's something I've heard recently. I guess in Martin Luther King quotes, I don't know the full quote, but I know he said something about the absence of tension is peace, or something that's harmony, something to that nature or whatever. And I know at least a lot I could say on the brother side, because we had the whole thing about harmony. They tried to avoid that, saying that's harmony, but that's not real harmony. You got to work your way
That's
through
not
it in order for
harmony.
harmony to happen. So don't be scared of the conflict.
I used to
Mhm.
tell,
Face
I
the
got
fear.
this from my aunt. You know how we at the end of the year we always say, I know as a district deputy grand matron, at the end of the meeting, it was just standard. Thank you, such and such, for a harmonious election. And there could have been no
Yeah.
runoffs.
Yeah.
I used to tell people that does not mean it's harmonious because we about to leave here and we about to have a whole rundown of what shoulda, coulda, woulda happened.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't, and we and when you put that label on something as harmonious, and I tell people, runoffs are healthy.
Yeah.
They are healthy because if
Mm-hmm.
you just have a line that is progressive for 20 years, somewhere in there there is something lacking because
Mm-hmm.
nobody is perfect. And you can't tell me that every person that has gotten on the back of the line, whether it be in the chapter, the lodge, the court, the temple,
Mm-hmm.
should be in that east.
Yeah, you're right.
And you've got plenty of time between the back of the door and the east to prove whether you should be there. And just like you prove that you should be there, you also prove that you shouldn't be there. And
Yeah.
we tend to, you know, we tend to overlook that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that also causes conflict because again, that's self-awareness. Me, I there are certain positions that I know I could never do because first of all, I don't have that type of patience. Not to say that I don't want to learn to eventually have that type of patience, but right now that's not in me. So me being in certain positions is just not going to work. But that's again, that's my own self-awareness to say this is not good for you. And if it's not good for me, it's really not going to be good for you because I'm going to take out everything that I'm getting angry about on you because I shouldn't be there. And I think people have to be
Mm-hmm.
more honest with themselves to say that they're not ready for this. And we have to be more honest and as past
Mm-hmm.
to say they're not ready
Yeah.
or they just shouldn't be because not everybody is a leader. That's
Mm-hmm.
just that just is what it is and it's not something you can get around. We try to say, "Oh, they might get better."
That ain't
No,
that
they're
ain't don't do it
not.
and not in the seat.
Yeah, right. And that's not the time to try. You
Try
know,
exactly.
I was taught coming up the line, whatever type of conductress or junior warden you were is the type
Mm-hmm.
of master or matron you will be. And if you are a lazy conductress, you're gonna be a lazy matron. And that right there tells me a lot. Because the conductress is not only the workhorse in terms of ritualistic, but you're the physical workhorse. You're the one dragging pots and pans and doing the delivering and making sure that this is there. That's your responsibility.
Okay.
And so if you can't handle that and you don't organize that, that's where I see if you can delegate. That's if I can see where you use your leadership skills.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can't show me in that seat, you can't be my worthy matron.
Yeah.
And
I get you.
I get to be the bad past matron, and I'm okay with that. I'm
Oh,
okay with
this
that.
this speak to the harmony point where you could tell what I would say it's harmonious, at least in the lodge. If those brothers that lost and battled in the lodge after collation, they still talking and
They
bugging
still
out with each
there.
other,
Yep.
then there's harmony.
Yes. And I tell people I lost an election to Celeste Davis by 2. Now, yes, I did. I gave her hell while I was sitting in that back. But I wasn't there for her.
Mm,
I was there for Ionic and I was there for myself. And see, that's the other piece. I don't care what organization you're in. Every organization has a mission.
mhm,
And if you're there for the title, you're there for the wrong reason. If you're there for someone else, you're there for the
mhm,
wrong reason. You should be there
mhm,
for yourself and for your organization. And I think when we lose that, we lose um, we lose what we're supposed to do because you're too busy collecting titles instead of doing the work. And
mhm,
for me, leadership is not about the title; it's about the impact. And that's where I think we have a lot of we have a lot of people who hold positions that are not very impactful.
mm,
So that shows their lack of leadership skills.
mm. I know we touched around a lot of things that's going to lead toward this question anyway, but what do you feel is effective leadership?
Effective leadership. I know there are several different types of leadership. I think the most effective leadership is servant leadership because within servant leadership, you have vision. So your vision is something that you need to share, right? And when you can get people to buy into your vision, that's part of them willingly following you. I am big on emotional intelligence and self-awareness because you are dealing with other people. It's not me, 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 me. It's we. And when you develop around the we, that means you are getting people to follow you. That means that there's more than two. You're getting the group to follow you and buy into that vision. Also about adjusting, adaptation, and being different. One of the biggest things that I've become really big on, especially since I've started to get more active in the shrine, is strategic planning. We don't do that often enough. We don't do legacy planning often enough. And being an effective leader means what's going to happen after I get out to sea? What is going to happen? Um, I had something when I was worthy matron. It was not something I wanted to deal with at all. But if I didn't deal with it, the question was, what's going to happen to the chapter? What's going to happen to the trust with the people in the chapter when I'm out to sea? What's going to
Mm,
happen later on when they have to deal with it because I didn't deal with it? So now this molehill is a mountain that I've
mhm,
caused because I didn't deal with it here. So it's about, that effective planning and that strategic planning. So we know that this happened. Let's figure out how to avoid it in the next time. How are we going to deal with it now? And then also, too, we have this thing about tradition. I am very big on tradition, but being an effective leader sometimes means making decisions that everybody doesn't like. And sometimes those decisions are really in the best interest of your chapter, your court, your temple, whatever. And you have to make that decision, but you have to be able to stand by it. You have to be able to explain it to people, even though they may not like it, they will respect you for it. And, one of the things we have an event in my chapter, and everybody knows, the in the seventh district, that's what Ionic did. And because of the pandemic, everybody had to pivot, right? So I told the worthy matron, we love it. We've been doing it for so long, we can do it with our eyes shut, but it no longer serves us. So there's nothing wrong with saying this has ran its course. It's okay. We're not throwing it, to the wolves. We're always going to honor and respect that tradition, but it no longer serves us in this purpose. How do we pivot away from this or how do we replace it? And that means having that conversation, not just saying, And my worthy matron came up with, we used to do a 5-star tea, and that was something that was very big. But like I said, the pandemic is something, and then again, like I talked about culture, people are no longer obligated to or feel like they're obligated to support these events. So she pivoted and she did a tea box. And we did it this year, and everybody's like, "Oh my God, I love it!" So next year, she's thinking, what can she do bigger and better that will still honor the tradition of our tea, but with this new innovation, how do we use that to benefit our chapter even more? Um, so those are, it's and then two, conflict resolution. That is the big thing of effective leadership. Like, not everything is your business. Not everything you have to get involved in. But when you do have to get involved in it, are you fair? Are you just on all sides? Um, and have you made decisions? And then two, have you used the resources around you? One of the things that I see and I really don't like is when people try to wing it. We have constitutions. Read them. Sometimes conflict resolution is right there for you. You just have to read it. Um, And sometimes it's not. So again, that's where critical thinking comes in. Like all of those components to effective leadership is like, how do you run your everyday life as a person? Like, are you, I think those are so important. I tell people, if this applies to you in the real world, how does it not apply to you here? And sometimes those things that should be echoed in the organization, if you don't do them, the negative outcomes are magnified, whereas they kind of get lost in the real world because this organization is so small.
Mhm.
And like I tell people, one of my I used to tell one of my chapters when I was deputy all the time, if you don't do what is constitutionally and ritualistically correct inside these four walls, it doesn't matter. Because on the outside, if I go to Wegmans and put $1,000 worth of groceries on the conveyor belt, and she says, "Well, how you gonna pay?" And I'm gonna say, "Well, I'm a past matron, I'm a past commanders, I'm a past district deputy." They're gonna be like, "Where's your American Express, Visa, or Mastercard?"
Mhm.
Right? How are you gonna pay for this? None of these titles are gonna pay for any of this stuff in the real world. So if you don't apply and do those things inside the four walls where we practice this, it kind of becomes null and void. And you know, that's my big ball of being a leader and what you should do. How do you apply the things that you are supposed to do in the real world in here and making these things stick and kind of, be fruitful to your members because that's a big thing.
Yeah.
Just a quick add on to your analogy. If anything, having all those titles, now you have less money to pay for those groceries.
That is 100% correct. That is 100% correct.
That's all the way facts. There's nothing free about Freemasonry for sure.
Absolutely nothing.
Yeah. In the ideal world, you would have exhibited those skills prior to receiving said role or title. But we don't live in the ideal world, and situations
Oh,
and circumstances come up, and men and women are thrusted into leadership spaces that they may not be fully prepared for. Um, and still going through that process myself. But I think that ideally, so let's just put that out in the energy right now, is in the environment right now, is brothers, sisters, develop the skill set so that you can receive those titles and be prepared for those titles. So it's all good to aspire for a title. Just prepare yourself for it. Put yourself in a
right.
proper position to
Hmm.
receive it, and
Hmm.
then and
Hmm.
go from there. Not trying to. I love it. Like not trying to wing it and learn it on the fly. When you're in the seat, no matter what seat it is, it's not the time for you to be
Yeah.
learning the seat. And I think we've heard that from
Absolutely not.
other past masters as well.
Hmm.
So if you're the junior, unless you are like the first job, maybe maybe a steward or master ceremonies, but even that you probably could still be learning that after you get off the floor in the master mason lodge. But you still should be learning about the positions because in the professional world, a lot of times men and women are learning a job ahead of them before they actually get the job ahead of them. Or you're showing up in that space a lot of times, not always, but a lot of times, you'll hear people say, "Hey, I was preparing for this job 3 years ago, knowing that I didn't know it was coming, but I was preparing for it." So I was ready when the time arrived. Um, Sister Onyszkiewicz, I do want to ask our other question about. I know you said you don't want to go back into the chair or anything like that, but we won't go there yet. We won't go there yet. I do want to offer up some space for you to share a little bit more about the mentors and the men and women that
Mhm.
helped you along the journey. So if you can just share some more, you already did a great job laying out some names, but if there are other men and women that helped you throughout your journey, please share those names.
Um, so some of the most impactful people, Geneva Stevenson, past matron Geneva Stevenson, past matron Jeanette Madison from Naomi Chapter, past matron Belinda Grant, past matron Carolyn Cole Benton. These are some of the women who dragged me along the way. I always laugh when it came to Geneva because I, especially in the Golden Circle, I was the youngest person in the room. So I got to do all the running and the gophering and stuff like that. But along the way, I was able to learn, which is why the Golden Circle is kind of like my baby. Carolyn and my aunt she's still one of my mentors, even though we have to laugh. We have to mentor each other at this point in time. But Carolyn was one of those people where she shared so much knowledge with you. I remember when I was worthy matron, and it hurt me to my heart. Past matron Anne Marie Lawrence, who was a very big impact on me when I first came in. It was funny. Her sister told me, she said, she waited for you to get in that seat to die. I said, well, thank you so much. Literally, I became worthy matron.
Mhm.
She called me and said, congratulations. And 2 weeks later, she's like, oh, I'm not feeling too good. And then 2 weeks later, I had to bury
No.
her.
Wow.
And one of those things was I was determined because of what those women taught me. It was my job to bury her. And like I said, I was fresh into the seat and I love doing the ritualistic work. I just had not gotten around to the funeral yet. Mm. Carolyn would call me at midnight. And if I didn't start with the first line of that funeral, she'd hang up and call me back until I did it again. My aunt, we used to do
Amen.
Sunday
There we go. Let's
dinners.
let's give a round of applause to yes.
She
That's the
Funeral
sister I
practice,
love.
please, please,
she
please.
and this was during the same time. We used to do Sunday dinners at my aunt's house. And my aunt would make me stand in the middle of the floor and I couldn't eat dinner until I figured out that whole entire part. And guess what? I like to eat, so I hurry up and learn
Mm,
that part in about a week and 2 days. I learned it
mhm,
very, very quickly.
mm,
Um, Jeanette Madison, she was a lecturer, and she was one of those people who made me take pride in how I walked around that room. I never forget. I don't know, I think I was maybe associate conductress. And she had come to visit my chapter. And I had walked around and I was just walking. And she had a kind of a deep voice and she and she said, come here. She made me walk all the way back around. She said, every time you get to a corner, you square that corner. And if I forgot again, she I never walked around a chapter room without squaring that corner. And I had another conductor years later tell me, I want to learn to do that like you. And all I could think of was Jeanette Madison, because that was
mhm,
one of those things.
Mm,
Learning our work was important. Geneva, when I was conductress and I first did the initiatory degree. They said, wear a jacket and put your little book in your jacket. I'm standing at the door. Geneva decided to take the book from me. So, needless to say, I'm not really sure what that first initiatory degree was, but it wasn't an initiatory degree. But when I did it 4 months later, I did it without a book and I did it on my own. So, those were, some of the women that impressed upon me the importance of learning the ritual because that's what makes us who we are. It's not the Constitution, it's not the name, it's the ritual. Brother Thomas Frazier, one of the most important lessons he ever taught me was that the most important title I will ever have is sister or brother, because I can do more sitting on the side than I can do in the East.
Mm.
So those are absolutely some of the people who inspire me. I'm gonna be a little biased, but Grand Senior Warden Kevin Wardally, he's
Mhm.
one of those people. He always pushes, even when I get angry, because I do that a lot. He's one of those people that always pushes me to continue to teach, continue to mentor. And that's really important in this organization. I've lost, though, of all the people I've named, Geneva and Belinda are still the only ones that are still here.
Oh, wow. Mhm.
All of those other people have passed on. Claire Davis, um, and those are people that were in my formative years. So, like the first 10 years of me being here, they were a big part of what I did and who I was and what I learned. So, one of those things that he's always taught me to do, and because he's very good at it, I'm able to learn, is how to mentor people without pushing them, but giving them the advice that's beneficial to them and being okay that they don't take it.
Yeah.
That's it. That's really important. You have to
Yeah.
be okay
Mhm.
that they don't take your advice, because not all wise counsel is wise, and it is up to the discretion of the person to take it or not take it. They have to use it to their best advantage. And if they don't, you have to learn to be okay with that.
Yeah,
Um,
1000%.
and that's one of the things that he's taught me, because I used to get so mad. Don't call me and ask me for advice, and you're not going to take my advice. He's like, you can't always worry about that, and you're learning to be okay with that. Um,
Once you gave him the
so
advice, you did your job.
I did my job. That's what I had to learn. There's a termination on that.
Yeah, yeah. Hmm.
Um, so that is, and then one of the things that all of those people had in common was they always wanted you to be better. So for them, the education in this order was very, very important. And that was something that they impressed upon us. And I think that makes a difference in how you lead. Because if you don't know what you're about, you don't know why you're here, it's very difficult to lead. I tell people, when we investigate people, one of my first questions is, why do you want to be an Eastern Star?
Hmm.
Right. So when I was younger, I used to accept the answer, oh, well, I want to do community service. Well, we're
Hmm.
not a community
Community
service
service
organization.
organization.
Like, you should probably look into this a little bit more.
Hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Now that's a byproduct
Yep.
of who we should be, but that's
Hmm.
not our mission. That's not our, so, part of that education was knowing why I'm here and understanding my why. And that's part of leadership too, is my why is not the same 20 years ago as it is today.
Hmm.
And helping people to evolve and find their place, and one of my favorite sayings is, sometimes all the power isn't in being the king. Sometimes it's being in the kingmaker. So if
Yeah.
I can help anybody get to that station where they want to be and where they deserve, I've done my job, and I'm very good with that.
Yep. Um, since I know we all joined the order young. What advice would you have if a young person, in their 20s, early 30s, decided to join OES now? What type of advice would you give them?
My best advice is don't lose yourself. Um, you do not live your life to be an Eastern Star, but you always live your life like an Eastern Star. Because some people get so engrossed in it that they lose themselves, and then they find out there's nothing on the other side for them because they get angry and they don't, and something good or something bad may happen. And um, but also my other piece of advice is don't be rushed into a station that you don't want or you're not ready for. learn to say no and be okay with that no. One of the best examples I can ever give of that, and I respect her so much for it, is a past matron, Felicia Walker. I remember everybody wanted her to go into the seat and, go in. And she was like, no, I'm not ready. I got too much stuff going on because, again, her own self awareness. And when she did go in, she was an amazing worthy matron. She went in when it was an appropriate time for her and her chapter. And I always look at that as a shining example of being able to say no. So that's one of my biggest pieces of advice. If you're not ready for it, and if you don't want it, not everybody wants this. They like my mother. My mother is not a past matron. She's a past Lord Lady ruler, not by choice. Um, but my mother just loved being in order. Her and my aunt, that was their thing. They were Thelma and Louise. We wouldn't take one unless the other was going. Like that was the rule. But that's what they were, and they were good members because that was their purpose and that's what they wanted to do. And I remember my aunt was the first lieutenant of high tech order. They said, "Oh, you going?" She said no, and she was very confident in her no.
Mhm.
you know. But learning to say no, because sometimes when we see somebody that's excited, we don't maliciously do it, but we kind of take advantage of them, so they miss the opportunity to truly learn and engage and be and get the experiences that we did. None of us came in and were worthy matron or worshipful master the next year. There's some people that do that, so they don't get the experience and the exposure that we did. So those would be my two biggest pieces of advice.
Nice.
So I'm not gonna let you off the hook completely. So we know that you said that you do not want to go back into the East again. However, in a hypothetical world, it's metaverse, right? You were to go back into the East of Ionic chapter number 77, knowing what you know now about yourself, knowing what you know now about your leadership, knowing what you know now about Ionic chapter number 77, and knowing what you know now about Eastern Stars, about the state of Eastern Stars in New York or in Buffalo, if you want to keep it that, what would be one thing that you will focus on as worthy matron in 2026?
In 2026. I can't believe I'm about to say this because this is a very hypothetical question.
Mhm.
Very.
I would, again, I am Monday night quarterbacking. I would take a page out of G. Michael Titus's book. I would become very insular with Ionic, and not to say that we're in shambles because we're not, and that's never the case. I have all the faith in my worthy matron. But again, like I said, membership is much different. Um, my focus would be building Ionic so that we're strong and we don't have to depend on anybody else. So it would be focusing on protocols, putting things into effect that normally, and two, because I've had the benefit of sitting in other houses, one of the things that I've learned is that people always say, oh, you don't mix houses. And, the daughters, we got our own issues, but one of the things is that we're very structured and we don't necessarily have that in the OES because a lot of our chapters are old. So that's one of the things that I would focus on. What is it that you need? So like start from the beginning. Let's do a budget. Let's figure out how we're going to get membership retention. I don't care if you don't go to anybody else's anything, but how are we going to get people to come to Ionic and focus on Ionic? So I think I would focus more on ritualistic, more on fellowship just with us. Um, and I'm also going to say I would try my best to focus on bettering our relationship with one of
Wait,
the
wait,
things that I
what was that?
found focusing on bettering our relationship with our lodge.
Mhm.
Because one of the things that I've been able to see firsthand since I've moved from one side of the state to the other is that successful lodges really good relationships with their sister child. And I would even go as far to say I was at a event and they were like, we're not successful because of ourselves. We're successful because our chapter is successful. So they feed off of each other and they're in a very good place. And they're one of those chapters and lodges that don't need to focus too much on the outside, which helps with their member retention, their ritualistic work, their administrative work. I think those would be my two focuses. I think it would be less on the social outside and more on the ritual, more on fellowship with each other and focusing on building a better relationship with.
All right. All right.
Yeah. Sometimes good just to focus inside. I remember Joppa did that a few years back. They took the time, they ain't bring nobody in, and so let's just focus and get ourselves
Yeah.
stronger. Then the next year they brought everybody in and keep it moving. It's a good thing.
Like I said, I did again, I never understood, some of the things that Titus would say and
Mm,
why he would say certain things. And now I do. And now I understand why why his lodge has such a strong hold for such a long time because they turned on in themselves, they focused on themselves. And then when they were able to open up, they were able to be a benefit to everybody and they were a benefit to themselves. And then, two, you could tell because of who was coming out. You had past masters on top of past masters on top of past masters. I'm like, that's a really good thing when you got all these past masters on top of your regular membership. So that, learning from other people always help, you know.
definitely. Well, past man, past matron, it was a pleasure having you on this evening. Definitely, you have left us with a ton of things to think about. I'll jot down a few, and there's I definitely suggest people go back and re-listen to this show because there definitely was jewels drop. Things such as leadership is not an I sport, but it's a team sport. Leadership is having people willingly following you, because you're not a leader if you don't have nobody following you, definitely. You know, that there's an expiration, sometimes there's an expiration date when you're a leader, so pay attention and know when it's time to move. Don't sit there and get stale. I just looked at a Doric thing they had about passing baton, and they had a little skit, and the brother dead with the baton in his hand. Don't be that. As a leader, you have to learn how to pivot around the people you know. So you can't wish for the people that's there. You have to work with the people you have. So learn how to deal with the people you have, and that goes with what we always talk about on the show. Everybody always bring up knowing your people. Um, you have to be there for yourself. You should, in any organization, you should be there for yourself in the organization. You ain't there for other people. You ain't there for your sponsor that brought you in. Anything like that. You're there for yourself and your organization. That's definitely a good one. Leaders have impact. Yes, if you're not a leader, if you don't have some type of impact on something. Leaders can't be afraid. You ain't say it this way, but it's the same type of thing. Leaders can't be afraid not to be liked. So sometimes you have to make that decision that people ain't gonna like. So don't be afraid to do that. And we keep in mind traditions, try to honor them, but sometimes you're gonna have to work around them. And if you got to keep a peace, keep a peace, but work around it. That's gonna keep you. And overall, just keep an open mind to things, and that you'll be able to lead a little bit better. So again, past nature, we think.
Absolutely. Thank you
Definitely.
guys so much for the invite.
Definitely. I want to echo Mark's sentiments for sure. I like the titles I like the impact over titles. That's definitely one. That's one for everybody to just really, really chew on at the end of the
Mhm.
day is what is your impact? Because I work in corporate giving, and so we always get requests for grants and awards, and the question becomes, all right, you had 100 people show up at your event, but how was their life different because they showed up at your event?
Mm.
And so that's a big key in the corporate giving space is what's the actual impact? What's the change in someone's life because of the program you created? It's a great program. You think it's the
Right.
best thing since sliced bread, but how did their life change because of it? Were they smarter? Were they wiser? Did they get more money in their pocket? Are they able to support themselves and their family? Whatever. Like, what is the actual change? So I appreciate the impact over the titles mantra for sure. And as always, know each other as long as we know. You've always been courageous in your leadership, always been one to not hold back what you feel and how you believe in. I think it served you well in a lot of different spaces. So continue to keep growing, keep evolving, keep showing up as your authentic and courageous leader as you are. So appreciate you being here always, and definitely appreciate the knowledge you dropped on our listeners for sure.
And again, thank you guys for the invite. This is, and I was telling the two ladies I do Prince Hall Think Tank. Okay, and I did forget, shameless plug for
Oh yeah,
those
do
that
that.
don't know. Prince Hall Think Tank is in their 10th season, and every once in a while they allow us ladies to take over. And so they have given us their blessing. So we will be coming out very, very soon with the first episode of Prince Hall Think Tank. Oh yes. So, thank you guys for giving me this opportunity because this helps us expand where we can get the information that's needed too. So thank you guys again for the invite. I truly appreciate it.
Absolutely,
Definitely.
congratulations for sure.
And tell them other co-hosts look for a message from me because I'll be getting
I
on.
did, listen,
Mark,
I told him,
you on it? You on it?
I told him, I said, listen, I didn't drop your names because, and I'm going to tell you, I should have said her name, past
Grand.
matron, Darnisha Pickett. Because,
Exactly.
we don't get caught up on the titles.
Hmm.
When I tell you, she is such a breath of fresh air and she is such a wealth of knowledge and past matron Patrice Hill,
Hmm.
they are both such wonderful people. And, to be able to be on the same wavelength with other people. And I learn from them all the time. So, we have our vent sessions, but they're really more learning sessions because it's like, what should we do in this case? And those are usually two of the first people I call when I need some advice. So,
Nice.
we are getting that. So you should see that come out very, very soon.
Yeah, I
Absolutely.
definitely miss Darnisha's podcast as I was a faithful listener over there. And sisters, I don't know what's going on. I would hope and love as y'all do some more OES podcasts. Yeah. But
Well,
yeah, I don't know.
we're gonna kind of take a page out of the brothers book. We're gonna
Yep.
cover history. We're
Hmm.
going to because that's unfortunately, if you think the brothers' history is
Yeah.
limited, ours is even more limited.
Hmm.
So we're gonna be doing history. We're gonna be doing leadership, and we're gonna try and do a mirror of what they've done. So
Yep.
our
Awesome.
guy, we want to do them justice because they trusted us to do this. So.
Great job. Great job. Great job.
Hmm.
Like and subscribe to the channel. Definitely share this episode with as many brothers, sisters, friends, relatives that you see will receive some value from what you just heard um, today. So, with that, we always like to say the world needs leaders, and leadership starts with being able to lead yourself. You cannot lead anybody unless you are first able to lead yourself. So please, again, continue to take the knowledge that you hear, the wisdom that you hear from the brothers and sisters who are our guests on the show. Take it and apply it to every aspect of your life where you think there's some value. So whether you're in the craft or outside the craft, please take one or two nuggets and apply it to your life. And until the next time, God bless.